Cybersecurity and zero trust security in particular depend increasingly on establishing granular control over who is on your network, their role, and their privileges. For government agencies, that also means deploying more effective ways to protect users from having their passwords and credentials compromised. I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and here to share some of their insights on this is Mittal Desai, Chief Information Officer at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Mittal, thank you so much for joining us.
Wyatt, thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
So let me start by kind of setting a baseline here. How has the White House executive order on cybersecurity to modernize and push towards zero trust really reshaped your organization's IT security strategies?
So I think, Wyatt, for us at the commission, we started the zero trust journey a while back. So a lot of the initiatives and operational activities that were going on for us, the executive order really kind of cemented that need. I think for us, is a couple of things. We are looking to probably reprioritize some of those projects and initiatives to support the requirements of the EO, not necessarily just for a compliance requirement, but more importantly, to better protect our systems and the data that supports those systems. I think the other piece of this that's very important for us is that we are looking at a modernization effort across our core suite of applications and also our infrastructure. So the executive order was very timely for us, right? Weaving in the concepts of zero trust is going to be very important as we modernize over the next few years in respect to better protecting our ecosystem, if you will. And then also we're going to be doing an analysis or kind of an introspection of our environment, of our legacy applications and systems, and where zero trust principles we can effectively implement. And if we can't, what kind of level of compensating controls we'll put in place. Also, like many other agencies, we are a candidate at the Tech Modernization Fund, the TMF. We've applied for that. I jokingly call it either we're going to get a full scholarship or partial scholarship for it. But I think using those resources will help us kind of speed up a lot of our initiatives to support the zero trust strategy.
Well, here's hoping you get the full scholarship, Ryan.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, next, let me ask, how is the government's willingness to, allow employees to work remotely, from kind of anywhere at any time, if you will, altered your approach to identity and multi-factor authentication management?
Yeah, so I think at the commission, it's really kind of helped enhance, right? And so at the onset of the pandemic, March of 2020, when the global pandemic became a very, very serious thing for government agencies and how we support that need, our CR organization was really spending a lot of time in respect to what we called no more snow days at the commission, right? So implementation of the Administrative Leave Act. So making sure that our employees who are responsible for the regulatory process had access to services from a remote perspective. So we began that journey around multi-factor authentication using PIV authentication. During the onset of the pandemic, I think the biggest thing that kind of came out is that are we ensuring that PIV credentialing is still supportable, right? Certificates that are expiring on a prescribed basis, can we have our employees have the option to renew that prior to the onset? And then what do we do during that period of time? I think what it's really made us do is really look at our processes and our governance models and how we better support the use of multi-factor authentication, increase usage through single sign-on, and then monitor who's on the network, when they're on the network, and do they have the right provision level of access to be accessing certain data sets or work sets as well.
Well, and then kind of parallel to that, how is your agency moving towards more, as they call it, human-centric cybersecurity? For instance, by helping equip employees to deal with the growing threat of ransomware and phishing attacks.
Yeah, so we look at it, in a multitude of things. So we look at it training, awareness, and testing. So from a training aspect, every year we require our folks to take some level of IT security and privacy awareness training. That training is obviously updated in respect to the emerging threats, the frequent threats, and the new threats that we see impacting many federal government information systems to better inform our user base or user community to be better IT stewards when they're on the infrastructure. So that's one thing that we do. I think the second piece that we really work on is the awareness function, right? Is that, we send out time-to-time security bulletins to our user community about something that's emerging threat. So think of tax seasons coming up right now, right? And so we'll probably be sending out more information how to better protect and better look at a certain level of emails that they receive that look very, very near, like you're looking at a link to a W-2, right? Or a link to tax software, and helping them identify what's considered a threat. and then also providing them an avenue to report these things so that our security operations teams more effectively can respond to those incidents. I think the last thing that we're looking at is the spear phishing exercises, right? That's something that we do on a prescribed basis, and we'll continue to do that. Gleaming those metrics after we do those tests really help us better effectuate how do we do training a certain way, or do we need to train a certain level of folks like our administrators or more of our business users in respect to how they're interpreting the types of attacks that they're seeing. So I think the combination of those three are really kind of helping us in order to support more of that zero trust strategy, that training and awareness as well.
Thank you for outlining that. And then lastly, Mittal, I'd be curious, what steps are being implemented to also help your organization's employees create and manage their passwords more effectively? Because we know it's going to be a while before we can really retire passwords.
Yeah, and I think, I'd argue to say that users that have to remember a large amount of passwords, change those passwords on a frequent basis, really degrades the security environment, because from a human perspective, people tend to write those down. And so what the commission is trying to do, we are a heavy user of multi-factor authentication, right? We look at phishing-resistant kind of multi-factor authentication to protect our assets. And so increasing that use, moving away from password, we're trying to go to a password-less type of ecosystem as we do our modernization efforts across our core suite of applications and our infrastructure. For those services that are legacy that are going to require specific applications, require use of username and password, we're looking at ways to better put a different level of authentication in there, some level of multi-factor, but where we can better protect our assets, maybe doing more of single sign-on, if you will. And then I think the last piece, kind of where I touched back earlier, our security operations teams, right? Having better visibility on who's on the network, when they're on the network, and are they really having the right level of authority to be able to access those work sets and data sets and services at the end of the day, to ensure that we have better protection of our core suite of applications, our systems, and quite frankly, our infrastructure at the end of the day.
Mittal Desai, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to stop by here and share some of your insights on ways to just continue to improve security for your employees across the agency.